How are you doing today?
I'm good. Good evening, Julien. I see a little bit of daylight peeking out behind you yet. How are you?
Still a little bit. I'm doing good. You know what? I'm doing great because
Oh,
for weeks and weeks and weeks you've been telling me about your travel stories, knowing that I could not travel. I was locked at home, and you kept telling me about your stories. Even though I must say your stories are always terrible, so it doesn't make me really want to travel.
when they're
Um,
old.
and they're old. Well, who does have recent travel stories,
No
right?
one. Oh,
So, um, but I promised it to you a few weeks back. I do have a travel story, and I think it beats every bad experience you've ever had with an
oh,
airline in the past.
I don't want to hear it, do I?
Do you take the challenge?
I get on the couch. It sounds like you really need it here. Let's get
I,
going.
I think I need a couple of covers and cushions as well if I get on this couch, because
Okay.
that's a terrible story. So here it is. It started as a beautiful story. I lived in Hong Kong at the time, and I was about to head to France, but not by myself. I had my girlfriend at the time, or my fiancée, should I say. I had all my in-laws, nieces, sister-in-law, father-in-law, and so on. So the whole family heading to France. Why
Wow.
were we heading to France? Simply because, A, I was going to get married. So
Well, this is a
it
happy
started.
story. At least it starts happy.
Yeah, it does start happy. It ends pretty happy, and then I get the airline in the middle.
Oh,
So what happened is we didn't have a direct flight from Hong Kong to Paris. I mean, we could have, but with 10 people, you don't want to pay that kind of ticket. So
right.
I had to take a plane ticket that would go through Beijing before going to Paris, and we had like a stopover for less than 2 hours, if I recall properly. That was a few years back, so I'm not quite sure about how accurate that is, but it was not a long one. And the problem with the Beijing airport is you got to run, regardless of whether you have 10 minutes or 5 hours. You got to run, because it's just they just made it in a way that it's impossible to get to the right gate in time.
Uh-oh.
So we arrived in Beijing. Everything was fine. The plane was on time. We get off, and for whatever weird reason, you gotta run everywhere, get your luggage, put them back, record them again, and you have to line up and go through security. I mean, seriously, why no one has ever thought about a better experience here?
Hey,
But,
we do that in the U.S. all the time, too. I don't get it.
and that's just terrible. But you know what? I'm used to that. I can live with it. No big deal. Here's a problem. I'm running in the airport, and usually when I tell the story, I'm explaining to people that I saved people from a burning building and I saved kitten and everything. The truth is, I was running in the airport with a baby in my hands, and the floor was dirty, so I slipped.
Oh, no.
And I fell on my back with a baby in my hands, and I actually broke my ankle in 3 different places, which I didn't know at the time, obviously. And because of the endorphins, I guess I didn't really feel the pain that
Oh,
much. I
no.
just got up,
Okay.
I stepped once, and then I fainted. So my whole family had to pick me up again. And then they call for airport security. They bring me to something that I guess we could call an infirmary of some sort, which was a terrible place to be. And what they did, I do have picture. I'm not going to post it here, but I do have picture of what they did to my foot. They wrapped it into whatever weird tape they could find, which is normally made for parcels. Put a little bit of cotton around it.
So you're wrapped in packing tape. Okay.
Exactly.
Oh my
And then they
God.
told me, now it's very simple. Either you take your plane or you don't, but you're going to have to deal with your airlines because we're not helping you take another plane. Now, it's my wedding. I'm not going to take any risk. So I hop on the plane. The plane is half empty. And
And you
my,
literally hop.
and sorry, I
You
really
literally
hopped.
hop on the plane.
Exactly. Exactly. I had to. And my wife to be starts complaining a little bit to the flight attendant, saying, "Look, can we do something for him, like giving him an upgrade of some sort, just so that he could lie down properly?"
Right.
And they say, no, you have an economy ticket. Yeah, but it's like half empty. He just literally broke his ankle. The doctor on the ground said, no problem, he can travel. Yeah, well, sorry, we are, not our problem. So I was in economy class, could not, you've already taken plane before, so could not lie down in any possible way. And the flight is, if I recall, is 9 or 10 hours, right? It's pretty long. And hour after hour, my ankle starts, inflating. It was really inflamed. It got really red, really swollen, but beautifully wrapped, ready to stamp and send by the post. And then when I arrived in the Paris airport, they got me a wheelchair, and immediately the first thing they said, they brought me to the local nurse office, and they sent me immediately. It was 4 a.m. in the morning to the nearby hospital for surgery, because I should just not have taken that plane, because with a difference of pressure, I could actually have had some pieces of bone inside my bloodstream that could have clotted in some way, and that could have ended up terribly just before my wedding. And in the end, we had all the pre-wedding photos that we were supposed to take everywhere in Paris. I just booked a taxi for 24 hours to bring us in every places and help me hop left and right. I will show you my wedding pictures one day. You see, I have a broken foot on every photo. That's pretty memorable. My wedding was pretty memorable as well for the same reasons. But overall, I feel like this was such a terrible customer experience. I'm not even saying that was their fault, because it would probably be the airport's fault for having such a poorly designed system and having a wet, dirty floor. If it had been in the US, I'm sure I would have attacked the entire company and probably earned some millions of dollars. Right, but that was China, so you don't try this kind of things. And the airline, they were not at fault. It was not their fault I broke my ankle, but seriously, you have space. How much does it cost you to, make sure your customer is somehow not in pain at the very least? Terrible experience. Yeah. Can you beat that one?
No, I cannot. There are two, you just hit the two threads, and my reaction to the two threads: incompetence on the airport. Both design and dirty floor, and then the fact that the best thing they've got in the infirmary is packing tape and newspapers. That's not okay. That's how many thousand people go through there a day? It seems like they should have a real medical capability above and beyond that, and probably someone smart enough to say, maybe you shouldn't fly with us, instead of just, hey, go ahead. Because it sounds like, you want to talk about a lawsuit. Imagine if your condition had significantly worsened. If you're in the U.S., that airport's just, paid for your wedding, your first house, and all kinds of things. That liability here would be over the top.
I guess it would have. And it's not just they said you can fly, no problem. It's actually they kind of said, look, if you don't fly, that's your problem. We're not going to help you book another flight. You're going to have to buy a ticket from scratch. And they were also saying, look, your family is fine. They have to go on board. They can't just say they no longer want to travel. So they really pressured me into getting into that plane.
Right. Wow. And it was literally dangerous to you.
Well, that I found out later on, because I'm not a doctor of any sort. But three broken bones on the foot and the ankle. You can imagine that could have gone wrong. That could have gone wrong, and they didn't care. That's
really harsh. And then the airline, just a lack of compassion. What?
And I'm not going to say lack of compassion. I'm going to say lack of empowerment. I think the flight attendant was genuinely feeling bad for me, and she would have loved to do more. But I think she got very clear guidelines, and she either was not empowered enough or not smart enough to make a move and think, hey, customer comes first. We'll figure out with the manager after, whichever that was. And I'm thinking that's probably the earlier, meaning that she was probably not empowered, and she could have gone into troubles by, helping me out. But stupid processes are meant to be broken.
Right.
I mean, customers should come first, especially in this kind of situation.
Yeah. That's just it's interesting. I have a friend who's 6'10", and
can you tell me that in meters so that I could understand what that means?
So 3 meters plus, or 2 meters plus.
Yes, because 3 meters plus would be very tough to stand up.
That would be unfathomable. So he's about this much short of the tallest of basketball players.
Okay.
So he's very tall, and he will, on an international flight, probably 30% of the time they just upgrade him out of sympathy, just because putting that poor guy in a 9-hour flight. So with a broken ankle, that's a broken airline. That's just really, and I gotta say, I'm really glad you actually survived and made the wedding and are here today to talk about all this. This is I think our first true life and death story.
It is. But the good side of it is that is the most memorable wedding my friends and family would ever remember. You tend to forget weddings because they're all somehow similar. No one is ever going to forget this one because the groom was in a very specific setup for the wedding. So pretty cool.
Well, are you feeling better? This is one I'm sure you're going to be telling your great grandkids about. But did this help a little bit?
Well, I'm still going to tell the story, and I will find another one to hop on your couch anyway next week. So I'm good. Thank you for that. Thank you, Max.
Good. All right, thanks.
So I'll see you next week. All right?
All right, sounds great.
Bye there.